What we're going to get into now, we're going to talk about the NFL's recent, I won't say the NFL's recent proposal, but proposals being floated around in the NFL now that will provide incentives to teams to hire minority general managers and coaches. Now, based on what's being understood in conversation, it is not something being proposed specifically by the NFL, but was something brought up by owners, several owners in the NFL, who brought it to the attention of other owners in the NFL to try and address the minority gap in the hiring process. Because everyone that you may talk to, even the more far right of those or conservative of those people, will tell you that the Rooney Rule right now, which is the rule that helps to make sure that every NFL team at least interviews one minority candidate, has not been successful. This initiative being proposed by some of these owners, and it has not been picked up by the NFL at all, I want to make sure I reiterate that, would say that if a team were to hire a minority coach,
head coach,
able to move, I'm sorry?
A minority head coach.
Oh, I apologize. You're right.
Very
minority head coach, that team could move up 6 spots in the third round of the NFL draft. If they were to hire a minority general manager, they would be able to move up 10 spots in the NFL draft from the third round. If they were to hire both, they could potentially move up 16 spots in the NFL draft, basically putting them into a high bracket of the second round. I want all of that. I want that to sink in. So with that being said, L, what are your thoughts? Because you've been bubbling about this for a minute. I want to get you on the record now.
This is some bullshit, family. The Rooney Rule is a rule that was put in place to try to solve a huge problem within the NFL. And that is the good old boy network, the white owners, those white GMs, those other white coaches practicing nepotism and hiring people that they know to come in and run organizations, and in the process, overlooking most times more qualified candidates who were candidates most times who were black. So the Rooney Rule was put into place to try to solve that particular issue. But this thing right here, this is some unbelievable. I struggle with even finding the words to describe how treacherous I find.
Damn, that's what you said. That's some strong words, my guy. It's treacherous.
But it's a sign. It's a sign of such.
I think it's some shenanigans afoot, motherfucker.
Some miscreants about.
It's desperation on behalf of the NFL.
Yeah, that is some desperate shit.
So desperate to the point where they're telling you,
that's embarrassing.
Hey, listen, Steelers, if you hire a black head coach, this is what I'm going to give you. I'm going to allow you to move up a number of spots to improve your team. What? This is the type of trade-off that we have to do. I would have much rather that Roger Goodell would have kept on with the same line of thinking that he kept with after the Super Bowl. After the Super Bowl, Roger Goodell acknowledged publicly, we have an issue with hiring minority coaches. I don't know how to fix it, but it needs to be addressed.
Okay, before you continue, I want to make sure that we play some thoughts from notable black folks. First up is going to be Louis Riddick. He was a general manager. He's a black former general manager for the Redskins and for the Philadelphia Eagles. He is an African-American. And, of course, Screaming Stephen or Stephen A. Smith to hear his thoughts as well. Let's take a quick listen.
Well, the diversity committee is going to have to get together with ownership, and they're going to have to create these kind of job fairs or these forums where people can really just sit down and talk in a non-formal setting and get to know one another on a one-on-one basis. It's how comfortable am I with you as a person? How comfortable am I with communicating with you about things that go far beyond what football really entails? Because otherwise, Bucci, I have no other explanation as to why this isn't happening more. And I refuse to believe it's simply because I'm a minority and you are not. Because look, if that's the case, then there's really nothing you can do. I'm gonna right now, continue to believe that it's a comfort level that needs to be reached, because that really is the next frontier. I think that we're gonna have to really explore here, because after that, I really don't know where you go with this. I really don't.
I love it. I don't love the particulars. I don't love the specifics. It's a gimmick. It's a gadget. I mean, it's no plan, no real thought to it whatsoever. We get that. So that's not why I'm saying I love it, because this wouldn't work. You don't want to be a black man hired under these conditions, because you would be the epitome of what they call an affirmative action hire. But the reality is that if you think about why I love it so much, I love that it provokes the conversation, because now the conversation has been provoked. The conversation has been stirred. And that is what I think is the most important thing to peel from this. We're finally able to have this discussion.
Okay, given what these two gentlemen have said, what did you think about Riddick's position that he believes that it's not really about, or that he hopes it's not really about race that's stopping folks from being able to be hired?
Wishful thinking at best.
Let Crush talk, man. Stop laughing, nigga. Goddamn.
Wishful thinking at best, because it makes me question the whole purpose of the Rooney Rule in the first place. I mean, why do you want to even diminish the purpose? Because you're uncomfortable acknowledging the larger reality. That was your discomfort. That was your discomfort on display. You may have he may have tried to come off as ambivalent, but he came off as rather uncomfortable with the idea of the idea, and this could be about race. So, no, that's absurd. When that's exactly what it's about. You know what I'm saying? That's too dismissive for me.
Do you think Stephen A has a point, though? Do you think Stephen A has a point that, hey, this opens the door for conversation, and that's why he likes it? Because it's bringing it to the forefront.
That's all. What do we need to say? What we need to say that white people are still in position of power and hire black people? How many more times do we have to say that shit? I mean, how many more times do you have to have that conversation?
Yeah, we don't need to be a broken record.
What? Come on, Stephen A. That was some bullshit, family.
You know who I'm kind of surprised by? Even Marvin Lewis actually came out and said something against this. And Marvin Lewis wasn't one really to make too much noise or to ruffle feathers when he was a head coach in Cincinnati. But since he's been released from Cincinnati, I think, 2 or 3, what'd you say?
He said this is Jim Crow-like rules they're trying to put in place.
Yes, he did.
And this is
which is strong words coming from Marvin, because like I said, that wasn't his MO. He didn't ruffle feathers. He was pretty quiet about a lot of those things. I was surprised to hear it from him, but I think what this boils down to, once again, we got to reiterate, because we want to be in a platform of facts. We're not going to go out there. We'll give you our opinion, but we want to be a platform of facts. So the NFL has not picked this up yet. It's just something that was being floated around amongst some of the owners to try and resolve this issue. And I put that in quotations.
But they did, hold on, to be clear, this was presented as a resolution at a virtual meeting that was attended by owners.
Does that represent the shield per se, or is that just the ownership? Because those are two separate things, man.
You can disconnect the ownership from the shield?
I mean, isn't that the whole premise that they were talking about with Roger Goodell? And that's basically his position in total, right? That he is the representation or the body of the NFL, and the ownership is just the ownership. Or maybe
I thought it was
that's what
opposite.
I understood there was something
Goodell worked for the owners.
I always understood there was something above the ownership.
Yeah. And again, that's not even an important piece.
Right.
But just the fact that it was presented to the owners, so the owners are aware of this information.
Right. At this point, it doesn't seem as though it's caught any tailwind. What that means, given that there's only one minority owner in the whole 32 teams of the NFL, I don't know what that means, but I mean, at this stage, that's where we are. But I think what it does, and it's very, not only is it dismissive, but it's very undermining to basically say that if you are to hire a minority general manager or a minority head coach, that they are not qualified. And because they're not qualified, we need to give you something to basically level you up.
You know what? It sounds like a setup, man. It sounds like a fucking setup. It sounds like a fucking setup, B.
Yeah.
It sounds like a setup.
That's all it is.
Because we give you all this, and guess what? You fuck it up, and don't bring home no rings. So yeah, it's a setup.
And then the owners can go back and actually blame this particular policy.
Exactly.
It'll be easier for you to do it.
And we're back at square one.
Would you want to be
Hell
a black hire? You could
Under this
I don't think
rule?
any person would want to be a black or minority hire if this thing would actually go through, because it would
guarantee-
almost be officially an affirmative action hire.
Look, I guarantee you, whoever was in the pipeline now dipped.
I don't know.
Whoever was in the pipeline. Now, gentlemen, I know I'm not the sports guy, but was there anybody that was in the air that could have been in this situation in the next year?
Leftwich was on the table. Anemone was on the table.
How many names are you guys aware of could have been a part of this situation?
Those two off the top were
Off the top of my head,
were very hard sauce.
Yo, they're dipping. They're dipping. They're dipping. You think they're really gonna go through with that shit?
Bro, if I'm listening, man. I want to believe that if this was to go forth, that these two brothers would say, absolutely, no, we're not going to be involved in this. But I am not the guy to ask that shit to, because I'm thinking that these brothers, because I don't see enough of us in these particular power positions stepping up and out when this type of blatant racism is up in our face. I don't see enough of it. I didn't see enough when Cap was kneeling. I didn't see enough outrage when they didn't get hired. Eric Bieniemy was quiet. Leftwich didn't have shit to say. All these cats who was in position of getting hired was quiet. You could hear a rat piss on cotton. They didn't say nothing.
Damn. This is gonna get complicated.
It's already it's gonna get
I even
more
forgot that they
complicated.
was dead quiet like that, man.
Didn't say a word, man.
And I guarantee you, there's probably a few other guys that were waiting in the wings. They're rethinking their whole ambition now.
But meanwhile, you got that clown that's in Arizona. The guy hired off some old bullshit. He was at Texas Tech for like what, a year, 2 years, and he was trash when he was there.
Both years,
trash. And somehow he got picked up. You got what's Gruden's brother's name? What's the dude that just left Washington? The one that just left Washington.
Trash Gruden. It was one of
the trash bag Gruden.
Trash
How that dude, they said he had a 30-minute interview with Snyder, and then they picked him up. 30 minutes.
I'll hate to think this is all related to the hashtag support everything black.
What do you mean?
The idea that, as a people at this point in our history, we have to support every opportunity we're given, because we at least need to be in the room. So I'm afraid that we're not going to have. Well, this is an ongoing argument I'm having with a few people. That we don't have the gravitas or the wherewithal to police ourselves, to police the quality of our work and our efforts. You know what I'm saying? But because we're not there yet, quote unquote. So do those guys Leftwich, do they take the L and get up there with their 16 slots and try for that ring next year? Or do they say, nah, I'm not going for that. I'm not going for the okie doke.
I don't see any player, man. I don't see them walking away from this, man. I don't see them.
We better win. They better win, because you're putting these people's money at jeopardy, man.
They better win.
You're putting their livelihood at jeopardy. So,
well, he's going to win this year because they got Brady. So he's in a great position now.
Who? What's the name in Tampa?
Leftwich.
Now see, that would be awesome. Yeah. That would be awesome if one of these guys took it all the way.
Bro, Eric Bieniemy turned Pat Mahomes into a God-level QB.
Yeah.
And was passed over 2 years in a row.
Now, out of those two guys, who do you think could
Bieniemy?
Do it? Okay.
Bieniemy should have been. He should have been. And the only way he's going to get an opportunity if Andy Reid retires and the staff and the owners of Kansas City say, "Hey, we're going to give the
We're gonna
job
bump
to
you
Eric
up."
Bieniemy.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
only way I see dude getting the job.
And this whole 16 slots thing, I mean, I guess my other question is, being uneducated, are there any GMs in the atmosphere that could fill these 2 slots to get their 16 slots in the draft?
No.
Nobody?
Not right now, man.
Nope.
Not
If they
like,
wanted to make this
sure?
resolution real serious, instead of putting it a 3rd round pick, move that shit up to a 1st or a 2nd. Then we can have a conversation.
really.
If you get talking about 1st round, having a conversation, meaning now I can take you more serious. But a 3rd round pick, okay.
For the GM?
For
Yeah.
either. For me, it doesn't matter.
I mean, I don't think it's going to happen. But then
Right.
I can
Right,
actually
right,
say
right,
they're
right.
trying to put some. But this is a fucking 3rd round pick, 16 slots, 3rd round.
Yeah. 32 teams, you only moving up 16, whatever.
Come on, fam.
Yeah.
It's a slap in the face.
They not. I mean, once again, it seems like these
NFL,
owners,
yes.
quote unquote, they're spitballing. I think it was some blind spitballing, because I think they were really completely ambivalent to like the impact or the insult that this could possibly be. But
The perception is
yeah.
completely wrong, son.
Yeah.
I mean, the setup is terrible, man.
I won't go as far to say I don't think that they didn't know what it would look like. But at the very least, I don't think that they cared, to be honest with you.